Is it? Hey, everybody. It's Peter Vaughan here from Cardboard Alchemy. We are live on a Friday afternoon or whenever you're watching this. And I am here joined by Rosie, our comms manager, who has got your questions. And we can ask anything we want. Talk about what you're playing, talk about games that are on your horizon or just releasing, or we can talk about Rudy, the reindeer, which is a fun meeple that we put into the game. Critter Kitchen, suddenly, when we shouted out yesterday that we are giving everyone who backed the game a little bonus. We can talk about Critter Kitchen. We've got I see that Peter Hayward, one of the co-designers, is in the chat. Peter, we could design characters on the fly, right? We used to do that. We used to have quite a fun time with Critter Kitchen in the prep stages with the two designers, and they are very good at coming up with all sorts of ideas. And I know someone asked in our update about Rudy and what Rudy does. We can talk about that. We can also talk about TTS. We just made a playable. So the version of Critter Kitchen has always been playable on Tabletop Simulator. When we launch the campaign, you can try it out. We generally do that with our games ahead of time. They are there because we need to test them. Then they are there because we want to share them. And then we spend the time. Huge shout out to Lauren on our team, spends all this extra time to update that online version with the latest cards, the final rule books, and get it playable while we wait excitedly for Critter Kitchen to arrive. So on our Discord, we have a way to play Critter Kitchen. Like right now, you could say, you know what I want this weekend? I want to get some Critter Kitchen games in. You can actually play with Carts, which is the expansion module that adds location powers. I recommend, of course, if you haven't played, trying it out without that. But we like put player powers and location powers in the online version so people can check it out. And Patrick says, so just watched Tantrum House's top 10 video where Critter Kitchen showed up. That's right. It's a top 10 game of 2024, and it's not even released in 2024. I love that they so Tantrum House does this video, this top 10 list, and in order to sort of meet the YouTubers who are commenting are like, oh, you're always telling me about the hot new games that haven't come out yet. So they went to a board game store so that no matter what they did, they were grabbing a game off the shelf that was available. And then in the video, they grab Critter Kitchen like it's on the shelf, and they're like, oh, wait, nope, sorry, that was our copy, because we gave them a copy to play for the review. So that was really funny that they they almost made it look like it is out, but I'm very excited that they it's like a top game for them. And speaking of which, Tantrum House has their own convention. So to kick off 2025, there's a lot of conventions. We're going to be talking about where Cardboard Alchemy is going on the convention trail. But Tantrum Con, I actually went to the 2024 Tantrum Con. This year, Tantrum Con, I'm not going to be able to make it, but Alex Cutler, the other designer of Critter Kitchen, is going to be there with a copy to play with people. So that'll be fun. I love that crew Tantrum House runs. One of the best cons out there for anyone able to get to North Carolina. They spend all this, I want to say, I want to describe the energy they put into a con, because there are conventions where you can tell the organizers put very little effort in, but sometimes you can tell that people put the best effort they can for how big it is. For example, I'm going to give PAX Unplugged, I think, is a very well run con, especially considering it's 50,000 people, right? 45,000. I think it's really done well for that number. Tantrum Con is probably one of the best ones I've ever seen from, I don't even think you could maintain that at a high level. They do like personalized touches. They do like lunchtime tournament games. They do like table flipping, and they do like events that are fun and diversified. They do late night comedy shows. They have such a great program at that show. I think it's amazing, and I think it's because it's small and it's run by a passionate crew. Something that we know a little bit about at Cardboard Alchemy. When you're small enough, you can put all the time in. Um, Hungry Gamer wants to remind me that there is the most important con next week, which is funny. Well, not the tickets are very limited, but he's talking about DonCon, which is the name that he and I and our friend Don Gilstrap, we host. So I should say we host. I don't host it. Don hosts it. It's a very limited invite, but I'm like I'm the publisher member. There is a designer member. There is media. Hungry Gamers, the media. It's an excuse to turn our gaming weekend into a con. But I will talk more about that when we bring Rosie on and what everyone's playing for the weekend. Oh, interesting. We have another opinion from Hungry Gamer that Origins is the worst run con ever. I wasn't gonna say necessarily who does it worse, but I will agree with that. I think that Origins needs some help. Yeah, they need to get organized. But anyway, hello everybody. We're talking. Let's see, we got more things to chat about. I wanted to talk about, of course, we are talking about the end of the year. There is a couple things coming. We just did a Critter Kitchen update, telling everyone where Critter Kitchen, what it's up to, and it's coming. It can't come fast enough, but it is coming. We have boats arriving. I think the Australian boat's docking. I think the funny thing about when you're tracking boats is that they say a date and you think that's the date, and then they say, oh no, that was the date that it moved into the following, strait, or it passed this other boat. That date wasn't real. But anyway, I think the Canadian boat was supposed to be in at the end of November, and then it was like, nope, it's the end of December, and it's like, please don't tell me it's the end of January. But that's Critter Kitchen. We did an update for that. We're doing an update for Andromeda's Edge, the last one of the year. On the last day of the year, we're going to have an update, which is really just going to say thank you for being a part of Andromeda's Edge. It's really an update to say, I think we're done with fulfillment. I believe the last country to get Andromeda's Edge will be Israel. I believe that's happening in a couple days, and then we'll be done. But there's also a surprise we're going to reveal during that update, which is that we are making a bonus card for Andromeda's Edge for the Dice Tower. So the Dice Tower launches a campaign in January and generally has cool promos from the games they like. And they did reach out and say, we really like Andromeda's Edge. I don't know everyone's ranking. I know that Tom Vassell put it as his number two game of the year for Andromeda's Edge, and Mike Delisio put it as his virtual number one of the year. I think he just didn't want to give it the full thing because he has loved Dwellings too much in the past, but it was very highly reviewed by the Dice Tower, and we're excited by that. And we have a special card for them, which we're going to share first on the Andromeda's Edge campaign. What else did I want to get to before we get into what we're playing and what questions? I did mention a little bit earlier Discord, and that we have people who are in our Discord and you can play Critter Kitchen. So Critter Kitchen is at the final stage where you are just playing something that is actually going to be the final game. Whereas we also have games with things that are not yet the final thing. So they are new. We're testing new cards. And one of the things we're testing in our Discord is Flamecraft cards for, our game Flamecraft. We have companions. We have a new way to play the park, and we have another surprise coming, which is brand new content, and it's a lot of different things for Flamecraft. So what we're doing is we're getting players who know the game, players who haven't played the game but are big, fans of Sandara. We're sort of like taking a little bit of column A and a lot of column B if you've played a lot, if you haven't played at all, and just finding out how the new content works for you. And we are also working on our playtest program because we are going to have brand new Andromeda's Edge things to play. We're going to have a brand new Flamecraft game to play, which we'll talk about in the new year. We also have the sequel to Flamecraft to play, and we have Whisperwood to try out. Might even be more than that, but there's quite a bit of things that you could get involved if you're interested in seeing stuff on the early side. All right, so I think that's my main topics to start off with, but I want to start finding out what Rosie's up to. This is her last stream for the year, end of 2024. What's up?
Hello. I'm wearing these for Rudy. I will say they are actually dog's antlers, so they don't really fit. But
Rudy is happy that you're joining.
But Rudy's got way more.
Yeah, just a little bit. Awesome.
I heard there was something about like they just keep growing more and more and more. I can't remember. There's like facts about reindeer in there.
Oh, really?
Loads, but it's fascinating.
And apparently, in Rudy's case, you grow carrots as well.
Have you talked about Rudy's power at all, or
I have not.
Are you going to?
You know what Rudy does?
Oh, it's been ages.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Well, it's funny because we also tested lots of versions, so sometimes I have to remember myself. The start of the location. So as you get to a location, for each carrot Rudy picks, you may gift it to another player of your choice to get a star instead of keeping it. So you can hand out carrots and be the hero of the town.
It's all about carrots.
There are some meeples there are some zoo chefs that are focused on different ingredients. Like, for example, there's Hans the mole who loves mushrooms. I don't know what's wrong with Hans, but Hans loves mushrooms. And so when Hans comes out, there's like this cool digging in the bag for mushrooms. And so when Rudy comes out, it's focused on carrots. There is one that's focused on meat. There's one that's focused on fish. So if you look throughout the game, you're going to see now that with Rudy, all 7 ingredients are represented by somebody who's very hyper-focused on that ingredient. The co-designer, Alex, got a there's a llama named Alex that's all about the bread. So there's that one.
I love it.
And actually,
I would be all about mushrooms, so I'm clearly a mole.
Well, I was also going to say, actually, the other co-designer, Peter C. Hayward, is associated with a parrot that loves spice, which is not one of the ingredients, but is one of the parts of the game. So it's fun that each of their critters got sort of associated with a certain ingredient. So, and I did not want to comment on your mole thing, but we're making frog creatures for you. So
and the frog likes soup.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you like soup, so you're into that.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the critters. But I keep seeing videos of animals doing funny things, and then I wonder what we would have it do in Critter Kitchen. So I mentioned to Peter in here, I said, I saw a ferret that hides socks all over the house and keeps putting them back whilst the owner collects them up. What would you do with that?
Oh, there's your...
Yeah, he said... Ferris the ferret, size 1. Before other chefs at this location can take items, they must add one of their items to the location. So nice. Look at him go so fast.
Very fast. I love to see that with the game designers. They're Peter and Alex are full of ideas all the time, and it was really fun because we didn't know how many zoo chefs we wanted. We didn't know how many we would stretch and make for the campaign. When we unlocked Rudy, it was the 38th zoo chef. So if you can imagine, I think Peter and Alex had double that number of working ideas so that we could pick the best ones. As they got unlocked, we needed to keep looking at that and saying oh, this one's too close to that one, or this one's not as good as that one. And it's really interesting when you have 38 different worker player powers that can come into the game. So everyone who doesn't know Critter Kitchen, you start with 3 chefs, and as you run out to go get ingredients, instead of grabbing an ingredient, you could grab a zoo chef, which will help you on the next round. And then you get a worker that has a size, how many of the ingredients they can grab, and a power. And it's kind of funny. Those powers are super addictive, but it's not even about the power. Sometimes it's about just getting a fourth worker, because that fourth worker can help you go to one extra spot, right?
Yeah.
But the powers are very fun when they can work exactly right. And one of the things that I loved about how Peter and Alex approached it was that they thought about it very thematically, about how the theme ties so much into the gameplay. So, for example, the parrot character being about spice, it's one of the only animals that there's only like 2 animals total, Peter could probably correct me, that can handle or tolerate spice. I think the tree shrew, which is a critic in the game, loves spice, and I think parrots are the other one that has some tolerance for spice. But what was interesting is that was for every animal they were doing that. They were like, "Oh, this animal this animal loves this, and this animal loves this, and we'll bring that into the game."
I'm not even gonna share Hungry Gamers comments.
The reason plants are spicy is because it repels almost all animals. Interesting.
Yeah. I love it. It's animals are just a continuous source of inspiration. I love them.
Yeah, we have a couple of games that are gonna have critters in them. It's kind of interesting how I think on a stream before we were talking about the things that stay kind of consistent with between our games. One of which is that we've always had the player color purple. Another one is that we've had potatoes in 2 games. Another one is that we've had potion bottles, which are seeming to come into more ideas that we have. Another one is critters. We have Critter Kitchen, of course, but the sequel to Flamecraft is Flamebound. When we get into that, we'll show you all the critters that exist in the world of Flamecraft. And then after that, there's critters in Whisperwood. So it's interesting how we're on an animal kick right now.
I mean, it's clearly popular amongst board games.
I mean,
have so many board games with critters in. People
yeah.
are boring.
People are boring. That's
People are boring. But yeah, I was just, this is a different subject, but
okay.
we obviously, I'm writing the update for Andromeda's Edge, which will be out soonish. And I'm just curious if you have a game of the year, because we are starting to make some lists with Andromeda's Edge. And do you have one yet? Is that something you're thinking about to mention next week's live? Like, where do you even bother making a list? Is it not your thing?
Interesting you say that, because I used to run something called the League of Game Makers way back in the day. I saw Jamie Stegmeyer had a blog, and I wanted to run a blog, and I didn't know if I could write as much as Jamie did. So I assembled a team of 12 authors, and I was the editor, and Luke Lauria eventually joined on as co-editor. And what we did was we asked every one of the 12 people to write about once a month, and then we posted articles that were on publishing and design and crowdfunding and all sorts of topics. And Chris Strain joined us as a League of Game Maker as well, because he had published games before. And one of the things that Chris recommended is the League of Game Makers make their own awards, which would have been interesting if we had done it. But we had all sorts of discussions about what counts, like how do we stand out different from anyone else's game of the year? Because there are, as the League of Game Makers, we're thinking maybe we would like reward designers, because designers were kind of a bigger focus for that blog, which was all about how to design. Whereas some other awards tend to focus on the game itself. I mean, I don't see a lot on there was a really interesting one in 23. Cardboard Alchemy got 3 awards from the Dice Tower, which was really, we were honored. One of them was Best Small Publisher, which I was really I thought it was a neat award. I was so glad that they did that and recognized us. And I actually wanted to see who got it in 24 now, because it was a really cool thing that now that I know it exists. But as far as game of the year, I don't think I've ever felt like I've played enough of them, because I tend to be very focused on the ones we're releasing. So I play, A Job is Edge all the time, and Flamecraft all the time, and Critter Kitchen all the time, and I don't get a chance to play as many as I would like. So if I was picking game of the year, it'd be my limited knowledge of them. But I did get exposed to some games via game nights and whatever that I've sort of, in my head, I have a couple that I think are like game of the year to me.
I didn't think I'd have one
You have
Something
one?
about but I do.
Okay.
And I don't like to make his head any bigger, but it is Things in Rings.
Oh my
The
god, that
gang
was
is
so
the
funny.
gang is very close,
Yeah.
but because I don't have 3 players all the time, and the gang has to be 3+ players, whereas Things in Rings has an excellent 2-player mode that's really fun. So, yeah, I think it's things I it's a game that none of my family have gone, "I don't get it," like, they all enjoy it, and
Yeah.
there's some really funny moments, and yeah, it's very good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like the gang a lot. I think Things and Rings would definitely be if it's not my game of the year, then I was gonna say Avant-Garde, which is really great.
Mm.
Um, but I also like Far Away. There's like really good small games. So I was actually thinking if I did it, I'd probably do a small and a big game category. Hungry Gamer, who's with us right now, actually has his own way of doing it, which I think is really interesting, which is that he nominates games that are within a range of weight of game, not too light and not too heavy. And then he nominates them in November and then plays them all in November, December to remind himself and like see which one rises to the top. And actually, I will selfishly mention that Andromeda's Edge is in his top. It's actually top 6, right? So we're in the top, which means he's got to play it. I don't know if he's played it yet, but he's playing it by the end of the year so that he can see if Andromeda's Edge is the winner.
I think
Or
it's an excuse to play all of his favorite games a bunch at the end of the year. Like, I've
right,
got to, I'm afraid. Sorry, I
yeah,
can't take you for a walk, dear dog, but I've got to play a million board
yeah,
games.
yeah.
Peter's sharing that the gang is his
Oh
party
wow,
game competition of the year, and I totally get that. I'm hearing the gang and Things in Rings all the time. And then he says that the gang was designed by Corey Heath, RIP, who designed Zendo, which Things in Rings was directly inspired by. So I think that's so interesting.
you know what's funny? I'm glad you mentioned that Zendo was an inspiration because I've seen people see Things in Rings and say that they felt like it had Zendo Plus or whatever, and I thought, well, I don't know that that was officially an inspiration, but
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really sealed it for me was I played it at Essen on a hotel bed with my friend that we were staying in the same room, and we were literally like, "Oh, can you play it on the hotel bed?" Yeah, you can.
yeah,
You don't need a flat surface. There's ways you can play it. I'm not saying it would fit on a small.
that would be a fun top games of the year. Ones that you could play on a bed. Top 5. Like the drum roll.
I have been asked by people before who are bedbound or in a position where they can't sit at a table for too
Yeah.
long. What games can they play? And or play in a queue at Disneyland. That came up a bit as well. And
Ooh,
it's such an interesting thing where there aren't too many handheld board games or board games that don't need. I mean, roll and rights work really well for a lot of
that's an interesting. So you
surfaces.
do like a game show, a game top where it's like top games that could be played on a bed, top games that we could play in a convention line, top 10 games that take over your whole table and then another table, in which case Andromeda's Edge comes back.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this comment is very funny. Oh no, I have to play Andromeda's Edge again. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's my attitude for Andromeda's Edge, which is that I will play it and play it and play it. I know that it's got very steep competition though with Arcs and
SETI.
SETI is great. SETI came out this year. I actually the designer that made SETI, I played Galileo Galilei, which is fantastic. But I actually found out that that's not coming out officially till next year. So that one he gets to wait for that one.
Just like Critic Kitchen doesn't count for
Right.
2024.
Kitchen doesn't count for 24 either, so we can take down 2025 with Critter Kitchen. That's what we can do. That's my number one 25. We'll just call it now.
A
Uh,
bunch of games in the running for me were Draft and Write Records, was by, that one. Oh, my brain's saying Inside Up Games. I think that's Inside Up Games. That was really fun. I love that one so much. That was a close call. And then Harmonies was also a very close call for
I
me,
wanna
but
play Harmonies for sure.
I didn't halfway through the year I went, "There's no game that's game of the year yet," for me. Yeah, I
Mm,
felt very strange. And a lot of reviewers and people have said, "I haven't got one yet. It's strange." And then all of a sudden, a bunch of games come out.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
It tends to happen to me on this whole topic, and since I don't do a top 10 of the year, I don't really worry about it, but I think I would have a hard time remembering the January one. because I'd be like, oh yeah, that was this year. That one's really good, or that one is this year. And after a while, you're like, God, there were a lot of good games. I mean, there are great games getting made, so it is hard to pick.
As a
And
publisher, do you think about when to release games with Game of the Year in mind? Or is that something that you think people just go, oh, that's nice that it lines up? Like, is it something that you think publishers really care about?
I mean, there are probably people who would answer that question that actually release games for Gen Con, release games for Essen, and specifically target games to release just in time for the Spiel Award. But I don't think as a publisher we're doing that, because what we're doing is we're making the games until they're great, and we're finding the time when the crowdfunding campaign would be for that, and then it just turns out how it turns out. I actually, you know, I think Andromeda's Edge was destined originally for summer, and then it spilled all the way till Essen. If it had gone like we had one more tray modification, we could have been a 2025 game. So I can't
Yeah.
possibly worry about that until when it comes out. We hope that it lands well in the year, right? I think Andromeda's Edge came out at probably one of the best times, which is the fall Q4 section, when everyone's thinking about it and everyone's like talking about it. So I think that's awesome. I think Critic Kitchen will come out at a slightly awkward time, which is that "do I remember what was in January" moment. But
And
you
this is
can't.
what Hungry Game is saying, is that that's why I do the replays, because end of the year titles kind of have an advantage.
They do, yeah.
So it's great that you do that, Will, because myself and probably a lot of reviewers go, I remember enjoying this. And sometimes it's about the memories. Like the
It
gang, you and
is.
I played at our retreat.
Yes.
6 players. Grant was there. I think Jenna was also part of it. Like, and
Yeah.
Grant's really good at teaching that game. He's great at teaching most games, but like,
Yeah.
he really like it was, and winning with 6 players on that game was amazing. So it
Yeah.
instantly makes you go, I need this game. And then I got the game, and then I was just recreating those moments with my friends. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to get that one. I love poker. Um, This is funny. I can't wait for the official Things and Rings AE crossover. Yes.
What would be on that,
Oh,
Will?
well, oh my God, maybe we'll have to talk about that when we talk about Luke's next Andromeda's Edge idea, which I can't talk about yet. Look at that. That's a lot of love for Andromeda's Edge in the chat.
Yeah. We're not allowed to say it's our game of the year. It's just too
Uh,
biased.
well, yes, I'm not allowed to say how much I love that game, but we we can talk about all sorts of fun things about other games, right? And then we're gonna play. So I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna go to a con where I'm gonna play a lot of games. So Will and Don and I are trying to figure out what games are gonna make that con, because of course you can get longer games in during those times, right? You can get like big ones. I would actually love to get the rules down for Civolution and then play that. That's one of the ones that I want to see, is if it's game of the year for a big game. Civolution looks kind of amazing to me, but it's so daunting to get into that game. Oh, that's so awesome to have that happen.
Love it.
It's just an honor every time when you make a game that it connects with somebody. And a lot of times I'll say this at conventions, really just making the games for me. Sorry, Brad and Luke and like everyone else. And sorry, Manny and Sadara. I'm really just going, I like this one. And then if anyone else likes it, bonus.
Hello, good evening.
But,
Good
but
evening, Facebook.
as a company, we're always like, it's just really encouraging to hear when we have made something that connects or that's creating memories.
Yeah.
Scott Morris at Lucky Duck often says it's not about the games, it's about the experiences, which is what Rosie just said too. Knowing that those moments are being made, that is why we're in this business, because the world has got crazy stuff and serious stuff. And when we can have fun times with other people, that is what we're here to make. That is here we're hoping to give, right? Peter Hayward.
Thanks, Peter
Yes,
Hayward.
that's exactly what I just said. It is all about the money, which is why, let me tell you about the next several Flamecraft games. No, we are making you know what's funny about the Flamecraft games? Because they're coming out. Why? Because the fans are saying, I want more stuff.
Mhm.
Why would we even be thinking about making a plant dragon plush because I have heard over and over and over the world is not right until the plant dragon plush exists.
It's true.
So we have to keep continuing on these things.
It's it's just something about what Sandara creates that you just want more of it, and
Yeah.
it's just so lovely to be in that world, and it's one of the reasons why, Disney keeps growing and, Ghibli and all those kinds of things, because there's something really lovely about being in that space, and you just want more of it.
Yeah.
That's why people keep playing Planecraft, is they're just like, what shops are gonna come up this time? Which town am I gonna create? And
Yep.
yeah,
What's one
there's
of the fun things about the TTS mod that we have right now, where we're testing new Flamecraft items? For the first time, we've put the 2023 promos in that mod. So Stuff the Magic Dragon and Rare Medium are coming up, and people are like, oh, cool, it's a new shop. I mean, maybe they've seen it because they have that promo, or maybe they haven't. And so that's fun. We're going to release all the promos again in 2025 in a bundle. And so it's really fun to have those shops come up. Also, anyone who sees this and is playing the games with Chris and our on our team in Discord, if Stuff the Magic Dragon comes out, be sure to look at the background, because there are Easter eggs in there. You won't know exactly what you're looking at yet, but there are things from Flamebound in there. Just a little tiny bit.
It's very cute. It's probably my favorite shop because
Very, very
it's
cute.
adorable.
A shout out
Who
to
knew Flamecraft had jelly cats?
right? Yes, it's always fun finding out what Sandara puts in these things. But you were talking about how you just want to keep going in that world. Sandara is drawing new dragons, because next year we're going to, I can't say all the things yet, but next year we're going to have new dragon types 2 different ways. God, it's so cool what's happening. And as she's drawing these now, she's drawing some in so we have a communication with all of our team and with modelers and with designers. So Manny and Sandara were looking at a new dragon, and Manny said, I missed dragons. I missed seeing new dragons so much, which is what I hope everyone will feel too when you see the new friends that we're going to introduce. So
Yeah, I was trying to imagine how it would work, and everything in my head was nothing compared to what she's done. Like, when I saw them, I went, "Yes, that's so much better than what was in my head." I think she's done an amazing job, and I've only seen a tiny bit, so I'm really excited for, all of that. It's a privilege to get to see them early, and she says they're rough, and I'm like, "This is not rough." Like,
yeah, that's the other thing about, we're very lucky. Sergio Chavez, who just did the Andromeda's Edge card for the Dice Tower and is working on the new Andromeda's Edge items, and also Whisperwood. I mean, the fact that he could sketch something, and I'm like, wow, I want that right now, that cover, So
yeah.
it's such a gift, and that's one of the reasons why we really focus on art at this company, because if you're going to get immersed into a game, if you're going to jump into a world, I want to feel it. I definitely want to be part of it as much as possible. Tactile, like having the meeples, having the coins, having the whole experience is so much fun. And Flamecraft is often listed by people. There's these threads that sometimes pop up on board game groups on Facebook, which is like, which world would you want to live in? Well, Andromeda's Edge is not the one to pick, because you're going to get shot at, and the Kraken's going to grab you, and you'll be blasted out. But like Flamecraft, no one apparently can get harmed there, so it's perfect.
I know, it's always Everdell or Flamecraft. Everyone always goes, "Which world do you want to live in?" And it's like Everdell or Flamecraft. And I'm like, I can't decide, because I feel like I wish they were just neighboring so I could just live between them and visit their towns.
Yeah. When the answer is Takedo, that is currently this world. That's like, yes, let's go to Japan is the world I want to live in.
Hungry Gamer wants to live in a Venn diagram. So,
oh wow,
yeah. A very sort of abstract world of circles.
That would be a fun movie where you don't know what the rules are, and if you stand in this circle, something has to happen, and if you don't get it right, you're pushed into another circle.
Sounds like Squid Games. Like,
yeah, it sounds like a Squid Game, absolutely.
I don't want to live in things in rings. There's some broken teeth. There's some elevators that might drop on your head. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. Critter Kitchen, I'm now looking at this from our other games point of view, right? Mission Catastrophe, definite no, because the ship is about to die and there's only one escape pod, so definitely no.
No.
Critter Kitchen, you're running a restaurant. Sometimes you don't get the ingredient you want, but otherwise, I mean, you're meeting cool animal chefs the entire day.
Yeah, your restaurant doesn't fail. You're still fine.
I mean, every day is a 7-course meal. I'm pretty okay with this.
You want to be a critic. That's it, right? You want
Yeah,
to be like, oh no, another 7-course meal.
taste a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the people will try to put their best in front of me. Now, of course, some people will put, you know,
Mushrooms.
the crappiest mushrooms on the plate or whatever, but we'll get through that.
A worst case scenario, you get soup. No, soup's the best. I want a giant cauldron with 7 ingredients in it.
Nice. That's funny you say that because that was the one thing about Sandara didn't really know what to do when we first told her that the soup would have 7 ingredients, and she really thought that it was important that it, like, show the 7 ingredients, so she had, like, a carrot sticking out of it and a beet leg, and I was like, "You don't have to, like it doesn't have to have all 7," but she's trying to nail it for what we said it was, which was a soup with 7 things in it.
Yeah, there was something about that soup that didn't scream yummy. It was the fish head, I think.
The fish head, yeah, that's where it fell flat.
And the cheese, because to me, cheese in soup doesn't make sense.
Wait, hold on a second. French onion soup with the cheese, like, baked on the top?
It's
No?
not soup. That's just a really weird pie.
No, that's soup.
As a lactose intolerant person, I just can't understand it at all.
Yeah, I gotcha. No problem.
But the bread in the soup the whole time, I guess it's croutons at that point, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't want my soup screaming at me. No, you don't want your soup screaming at you. You don't. But yeah.
You know, we posted on the last Critter Kitchen update, although we didn't do it on this one, so maybe the next one we have to redo the soup challenge with the other second half of the soup challenge. But we did a soup challenge on the last post, and what was really fun about it was Rosie and I went to, like, a Target or a Walmart or a couple stores, and we got soup, and we were going to do it. Rosie's idea was to have the content creators taste the soup and try and figure out which one it was. And that was from just the production standpoint. I didn't want to pick soups that, like, were obvious. I wanted it to be hard, but picking a soup that's hard to guess is also funny and weird because you're like, either you're going to pick one that's very bad or very, odd.
Yeah.
So we picked one of my favorite choices out of the entire thing was Italian Wedding because it's just got a fun name and it does have a texture to it. Like, you get a meatball and you're like, what?
Yeah. It's not something I've ever heard of. We have very different soups over here.
Yeah.
So I just had to go with it. If you said it was normal, I was like, okay.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's the most normal, but like if we picked, like, because someone said broccoli cheese, that would be a very easy guess to me. So it'd be like, so it's hard to, like, figure out a soup that you can't guess. Here's another thing I learned about soups. This is a random topic, but when we did Critter Kitchen, soup became very popular. People played the game online, and then there was someone in our Discord, Meme Stealer is their handle if they're ever watching the stream, where they just decided to, like, make a soup tower in the game. In TTS, they stacked all the soups, which became a thing in our Discord, and then people were doing stacking of soup comments, which was very funny, and it just became a whole thing.
You can still play it. It's still going.
Yeah, you can still play this in our Discord even today. We're talking a year later. The
rules are really simple. You just can't.
You can't
the same as the one above,
right? But here's what I learned during that time: is I went out to go try and take pictures of actual soup to participate in the soup tower room, and I realized that one thing about soups is they're not photogenic.
Nope.
There isn't a good soup photo. I'm sorry, but they just don't seem appealing.
When soup is cooking, very different. A bubbling soup, lovely. In a bowl.
It just doesn't have anything different than the last bowl, unless you're talking about, there are some, I suppose, like a wonton soup would be pretty different looking. And I think those could be fun too. But But yeah, I was like, wow, I want to take a picture of the soup, but wow, it doesn't look good. It doesn't convey the taste that's happening.
It's all about shallow focus. Really just get the edge of the bowl. Like,
Yeah, it's just like
the big I've discovered this on our honeymoon. We made from the Tolkien book, we made this potato soup, potato and garlic soup, and it was delicious. And I said, get the ladle being poured into the thing. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. Let's just get a shot of the bread.
so maybe not soup TikToks then. All right. So another topic that Peter brings up is, have you tried the Codenames app yet? It's amazing. I have not. I
Do you
don't.
play it against other people online, or is it only because I don't know it? So.
Because actually, Hungry Gamer, so Will Brown and Don Gilstrap have been posting pictures of Codenames, so maybe they have played it. And I think I have a funny relationships with apps, which is that I will get board game apps, but it will pretty much mean that I never play the physical one ever again, because once I played Lords of Waterdeep online, I never needed to play the board game. Just because at that point the turns just go so much faster than the real world.
That's what Doug's found. My partner's found with Daybreak is it plays really well on BGA. So we have it, and yet he's like, he was looking at the games we played this year for our top 10, and he's like, I've played this 60 times. You have played Daybreak? So yeah, I play it like 3 times a day. It's really fast. I was like, what? Like, yeah, but the solo on his own is like a lot of setup, and so I could see why those kind of games.
When I first got into gaming, fun fact about Brad and I, we started playing online games together almost first because we worked together at Disney, and then we would be at work and we'd be like, hey, could we get like an online game in a browser? So we had games. There was a great site that had Puerto Rico on it, and it was like turn-based Puerto Rico. But when I would take a turn, let's say I'd take my turn in Puerto Rico, and then I would log off, I'd go do some stuff, and then I would look and see Brad took his turn. When I was taking my turn, I could do it really fast, and it was kind of boring. So then I opened another game with Brad, and another game, and another game. And then we had like 20 games of Puerto Rico. It was like turn 1, turn 2. Like I would just basically go down each game and take a turn, take a turn, take a turn, take a turn, and they would reset. When you do that, if you do that enough, then by the time you reach the last one, you basically can take a turn in this one. It was really like we went overboard on online games, but it was
Brad okay?
Those games were amazing because the other thing that happens when you play a game that much is that you get like really into it from like your deep strategy. Now you're like, wait a minute, he knows that I would do this and stuff. It was really fun.
My phone is so full of video footage of board games that I do not have any space for game apps whatsoever. I have an iPad that's pretty old that I could put some games on if I want, but I just can't. BGA is great on my computer, but I'm useless because it's full of videos. It's like just when it goes storage and it's just the whole bar is video. So you're like, yeah, that's me.
It's funny that if I think about my started board games, it came from online games and not wanting to wait for my turn. It's like when I was designing What the Food, which was a food fight to the death. And I love food games, obviously, because Critter Kitchen was like coming back home. I had a game with a couple of buddies. In fact, it was Brad and this other guy, John Geibel, and John went on vacation one day, and so our turns in Carcassonne just like ground to a halt. Like we were playing, and then, well, John's on vacation. Not to single out John or anything. It's not like he left all the time, but
if you're watching John,
I mean, yeah, John, Brad, and I used to play a lot. But then when he moved far away, we would play online. And then when we played online, life would get in the way sometimes. And so when I designed What the Food, it was specifically so that your turn went based on a timer and did not wait for the other person. So you only had so many minutes to actually take your turn. In my way of doing that was like saying, hey, listen, I want to just play this game at this pace. So I was going to say the reason that I have a problem with BGA sometimes is that if I get into that groove, like I'm talking about Puerto Rico, I'll play and I'll take my turn fast. But if I forget about the game and go do something else, and I'm dealing with all the Cardboard Alchemy things, someone will be like, are you going to take your turn ever? So
To make a public apology to our community who played Wingspan with me, and then it took 4 months because of me. They were like, "It's you, Rosie," and there was one point they waited like 3 weeks for my turn. And I was like, "It has to be live play. It can't be."
that is the downside, right? Yeah.
Because I can't do one where it's like you can play whenever, because I will just forget to go back to it. So it has to be like, I have a couple of hours, let's play online. Otherwise, yeah, I feel sorry for those people who had to
Yeah,
wait.
yeah. No, I do like online games, but I think you have to be consistent about it. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
yeah, I used to play the games I played on BGA the most. I played a lot of Arnak. I liked Arnak on there. It as to my earlier statement is true. I played physical Arnak since because it's just like, well, there it is. I can get
Yeah.
it.
In fact, New Year's Eve, because I can't leave the flat because of fireworks, because of the dog, my friends who have children, we're all going to play BGA online
Oh, that's
together
cute.
that day because we can't meet in person. They can't bring their kids here. We can't take our dog there. So we're like, let's just play BGA for ages. And I don't even know what we're going to play yet, but we'll just sit there and talk and play online. So it's nice that
So
you can use it for that.
I'm gonna take this conversation from BGA and I'm gonna go all the way back to Game of the Year because I have something I've played on BGA that I think could be Game of the Year, which is the game River of Gold, which
I've
uh,
heard of it. Yeah.
I played that a couple times with Will and Don, and then I played it one time in person. It's really good. Um, the the basic gist of it is that there is a large river um, that is, coated in like there's a really beautiful art style where it's like the river has got gold and you're sailing these boats down it, and basically you have a die that you roll. That die determines whether or not when you roll the die, let's say you get a 5, that means you can either move one of your boats 5 spaces, or you can interact with one of the customers that's labeled with number 5, or you could build a building in zone 5 of the river, which if you build a building a little bit like Lords of Waterdeep, then when people land on your building, you get something, they get something. Um, it plays so tightly because each zone you're competing for area control of the buildings. You're trying to get resources to get the customers, and you're trying to manage your where these boats land, and you only have so much time to do it. I think that for me, I'm a gamer that I love to like kind of play the long game. So if I'm playing Andromeda's Edge, I want to like build a combo that goes really big. And River of Gold does not let me do that. So for me, it scratches the itch of how can I have to be efficient and get this done quickly because I don't have all day to like build up my perfect city down on this part of the river. I can't get all the customers with all the powers and use those all game because the game's over too fast for that. Um, and yes, and physically the gold foil is a very nice touch on the board. I appreciate beautiful components. River of Gold would probably win for gameplay and presentation. I mean, it's a definite contender.
There isn't enough gold foil in board games, I feel. And what's great about gold foil is you could do actual gold foil in a deluxe. Like you could do
I
like
know. Well,
carrot.
I will say that as far as foils go, I know that other campaigns have done foils. It is one of my blind spots because I don't really think about the foil version of a card. But if people like that kind of thing, I've been thinking possibly that when we go into Flamebound, maybe we'd have some special versions of cards and things like
Yeah.
that. Um, I I generally just quote with the manufacturer and we quote like, "Hey, we want decent cards. We want linen finish and we want a good core in the card." But after that, once I get to gameplay, I don't tend to think of like, "Oh, what if this was like holographic or foil?"
Yeah.
That's another level.
But it's funny because I relate it more to TCGs and
Yes.
games with some collectability. Doomlings just posted me Mr. Toasty, which is like a Santa foil card. I didn't even know it was coming, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice touch. Sending like a shiny Father Christmas Doomling. But yeah, like
It's cute.
soup
It's
foil
nice.
tokens. Absolutely, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes. Something about Critic just doesn't say foil to me.
No.
It just doesn't. But I could see a shiny fancy dragon for sure. I can envision a shimmering fancy dragon. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but
Love
that's
to
just
see it.
That's because also we've got some people in our Discord who we've got a Flamecraft, like the crafty and the fan art bit, and someone's painting a set and they're doing like a set of minis and they're doing like a sort of shimmery effect on them, which looks really
Oh,
cool.
that's neat, yeah.
So if you aren't in our Discord, definitely join it. It's linked below and you can check it out because it's really beautiful. I love people's different painting styles they do on the dragons.
By the way, this is the one I was thinking about. Moonrakers. IV Studios does amazing foil work. So if I ever did go for that, I would probably call them and say, what do you recommend? What has worked well in production? Because there are obviously pitfalls. You could get bad ones. I think they've done an amazing job. In fact, they blew me away on Tend because they did a scratch off ticket, but like it was really like the dust of the scratching didn't like build up. I mean, they did an amazing job on that one. Shiny, like a shiny surface that you scratch off and it doesn't like leave too much residue. I was like, wow, how'd you?
And they tested that. They made sure that it didn't just go everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
So yeah. Oh, and Hunger Gamer, who did show me that game, was like, and the stamps, because they made these markers. Essentially, it's like a Sharpie or something, but both sides of the pen, one side's a fine point, the other one is a stamp with an icon. I mean, it's fantastic production.
It was really cool. Yeah.
I would say that I told Ivy Studio that at PAX U, I ran into Austin and I said, you make amazing things. I mean, just amazing things.
And they've used magnets. I want to use magnets.
I'm consistently blown away by the ingenuity in the industry, and it's exciting to be part of it. Was talking to someone and they said, oh, I think deluxification will go away. I said maybe, but because certainly it's not key to the game itself. Like, for example, I'm really proud of the fact that for Andromeda's Edge, we made a standard edition, and for Critter Kitchen, we made a standard edition. So you don't have to chase all that stuff. But if you really like it and you really want to have that experience, there is another option. It's not, and it's, as it's turned out many times in crowdfunding, it is generally a 90-10, at least in the crowdfunding sphere of people who want to go all for all the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got the fancy version of River Valley Glassworks, and what they did was they've got resin or plastic versions of the pebbles, the glass bits, but they also did actual glass bits. And they do feel really nice. And there's no seam on them compared to the plastic ones. They've all got like a running seam around them, but these are literally little bits of glass. So it does feel really nice, and there's glitter in them and everything. And I could see why there was a lot of appeal to get them made out of glass. So it was really cool.
By the way, Merry Christmas to you, Mark. Mark has the privilege of being, I think, the first person to play the published game of Andromeda's Edge 100 times recorded. That's amazing.
How many hours is that, do you think?
Well, a solo game would probably be an hour and a half, or 2 hours, depending on like how. I mean, it's supposed to be 40 minutes a player, but I know that solo has some upkeep, so I would say that's an hour and a half experience, right?
So like, wow, yeah, 150 hours. That's amazing.
So that is amazing. So I hope you have a wonderful time for Christmas. I have played Andromeda's Edge 100 times, but not the final version of Andromeda's Edge 100 times. And I don't think
he's asking, how many games have you ever played 100 times?
I don't know if there's that many that have gotten up there. Obviously, Rise of Tribes is up there because I helped make Rise of Tribes and I developed it. Sparkle Kitty is probably up there because I developed that one. I developed many games like We're Doomed, but I didn't play that 100 times. I mean, maybe I played it dozens and dozens. Andromeda's Edge is definitely up there, and Dwellings of Eldervale is up there because I played a lot. Flamecraft is definitely up there. Critter Kitchen, I have not got my 100 yet, so I know what my 2025 mission's got to be. Boom! It's the perfect year to do it.
I think I've definitely played Railroad Inc. 100 times. And I guess the oldest games like Carcassonne and stuff, probably over 10 years, I've played them 100 times, you know.
Sure. If I went, well, because of this stream, I could say I've played Puerto Rico 100 times. Easy. Yeah. I mean, probably 20 games at a time over weeks. I have played probably 1,000 games of Puerto Rico.
Brad can also say that he is played Puerto
Rico. I played Acquire a lot as a kid. Oh my God, I loved Acquire with my family. So I probably played Acquire easily over 100. That's a
I've
fun.
depressingly probably played Cluedo 100 times, but that wasn't my choice.
But,
'Cause it's all you got.
I told you what my stepfather used to do. He would modify one rule in every game. So the thing with Clue that he modified was you could lie once, one time. It blew it wide open because people be like, wait, no, you don't have that. It's like, yep, I do. Like I lied that one key critical time, and you have to really suss that out. Anyway.
Yeah. I think I definitely played Cheat and like Liar's Dice a lot,
Sure.
but
Once we start going into like spades, hearts, and poker, then
well,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. But board games is a whole different ball game.
Any game like Andromeda's Edge 100 times is incredible. Like,
Andromeda's Edge deserves a special, and that's why I said something. That's wild. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
But we will be. Let's see. We don't have that much time in the year if you want to get anything in 100 times, but you could play whatever you're playing and tell us what you could hit us up on this YouTube. You could see us in Discord and join us for a game, or you could go join our Facebook groups. We'll be here to answer any questions. I have to decide if I'm going to do a live stream next week. I will technically be in town. Should we call this the end, or should we do one more? Perhaps I will turn that to our Discord to decide. I'll ping people in there and see if they want to chat next week. We will.
It was noticed that there's one scheduled. It's purely in because I'm not working next week, and just so that it's scheduled and everything, and Peter can do it if he wants. It's in there.
Yeah.
But if Peter decides not to, then it will magically disappear.
Magically disappear, and we'll be back with a lot of fun things to reveal in 2025, if not. But we do appreciate. Well, thank you for saying that. I don't get to take a vacation because you know what's happening right now? This is the behind the scenes at like 56 minutes into the stream. I'm quoting the new Flamecraft game with a bunch of manufacturers, and they're not taking that break. And so this is the best time to get their attention because in next month they will be leaving. They will be taking off time. So this is like the key moment to like talk about components and work out a new Flamecraft game. So that's what I'm doing no matter what over the holidays. But I'll be taking my turns in some game while I do it.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, if anyone has any other things they want to chat about or what they want to hear about in the new year, please let us know.
There was a question of, will there be any crossover promo between Andromeda to Critic
Oh,
Kitchen?
that would be neat, wouldn't it?
It's what a vastly different audience.
Yeah, right. The only reason the dragons made it in there is because at the time we were launching Andromeda, Sandara was the main reason, because I wanted to talk to Sandara as an artist, right? So she has done an Andromeda's Edge thing before, which makes it unlikely that I would ask her to do an Andromeda's Edge thing for Critter Kitchen. And as Rosie said, they're very different worlds. But we are making new content for Andromeda's Edge. You never know. It could happen. But I do think what we could see is, since we love combining worlds, when we make Whisperwood and there's another Peter and Alex game that I can't talk about yet, but you never know. There could be like an Easter egg here and there. It's nod to something.
I'm literally racking my brain for anything cute in Andromeda's Edge. And I'm like,
well,
I guess the thing is we already have a squid like in it. So,
I have to mention this funny thing is that so Hungry Gamer, who's shouting space chickens now like it's a faction in Andromeda's Edge. I did throw that out to Luke. I usually do. I will say this brief thing about Hungry Gamer. He has this magical effect on the industry because if you haven't seen his channel, he has a lot of fun. Like, hey, I just went to a con. Here are my top 5. And one of the things that he did is when he sees a game that he thinks should be published, and he's out there seeing a lot of different games, he'll often shout it out and try and get it a publisher, like he did for Cosmo Octopus, which became a game published by Paperfort Games and then distributed by Lucky Duck. And I remember when that became a thing. So one day, Hunger Gamer comes up to me and says, I think you should put this thing in Andromeda's Edge. And I can't say what it is yet, but it is going to happen. Like, it's a crossover in Andromeda's Edge with a game that is not a Cardboard Alchemy game. I think that's going to be really fun. It's a random crossover, but it's going to happen. So that's gonna be a fun thing to talk about next
And
year.
the last question that came up that I haven't done yet, which I don't even think you can say anything on, we can just go, is your newsletter seems to suggest that there may be more zoo chefs in the future. It looks like there might be even more space in the tray for some more someday.
Yeah, I can
Interesting.
talk to that for a second. When we make game trays, we tend to think like, should we leave a little bit more? Because when we make the box, I will give one of my best examples is when I made Rise of Tribes, and I made it completely hold all the deluxe pieces and then completely hold the expansion. You can't always build a box for all of the future things. In fact, you often cannot build a box for the future things. But as the final tray was being made for Critter Kitchen, I asked Game Trays if we could make room for just another meeple or two for the future. So yes, we would like to make another meeple or two to fill those spots. So we will work on that. I'm sure Peter and Alex have ideas. So, but in general, I think I do the same thing when I made Letter Tycoon. I left just enough card space for the expansion. I like leaving a little bit of extra. So just Andromeda's Edge has just a little bit of extra room for more factions and stuff like that. It's pretty neat to do that. Of course, if the game still needs more content, then you have to go through that awkward phase of, now we need a new box, which I think someday Flamecraft will be there because we made Flamecraft. Then we made Series 2 dragons and Series 2 coins. And I think Flamebound's going to introduce Series 3 dragons. And then there'll probably be another series. And by the time we have too many dragons, we're going to need a dragon box or something. I don't know. It just gets to a point where you're like, okay, so now what about the world that we've made, right?
I did promise a shot of Dobby in his jumper.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah,
there he is.
Cute doggo. Merry Christmas, Dobby. Yeah, that's cute.
I tried to pick him up, but he was like, absolutely not.
Forget it. I'm comfortable over here.
He's far too comfortable in his Christmas jumper. He wants it all the time. It's got little hearts on it like Flamecraft, which is really cute.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, he's not a camera dog.
We will let you go hang out with Dobby now, and we'll all go find some games to play, and let us know what you've decided to play. Have a wonderful.
Yeah, let us know in comments what you're going to be playing over. If you have Christmas, let me know what you're playing. If you don't, let me know what you're playing. I'd love to know. I'm hoping to potentially play maybe an RPG for once. That would be nice.
Very nice.
I've got so many.
I actually bought my son because I'm trying. I would love personally to like DM a game for him and his friends. So I bought him. There was these sets that D&D has put out of like buy the class now. So you could buy like sorcerer dice or bard dice, and I bought him the ranger dice, and each set is a specific color with lots of like fun accents in the dice and sometimes special symbols on some of them because they are thinking about the class and what you might be rolling and everything. Cool. Obviously, so really fun.
I want to play this one where you're all old ladies solving crimes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a TV show, like Jessica Fletcher, Murder, She Wrote style, and you can cut to commercial to solve a problem, but you have to create the commercial, like you have to describe it. And there's also some like Cthulhu-esque stuff going down, like it's a bit strange. Wow. That's what I want to play. Been wanting to play it for ages, but getting people together, as you know, is a nightmare with D&D.
That's an event where you have to say, this is what we're doing. Get into character. Do the thing. Yeah.
Get a gray wig, you know.
All right, have fun with that. And we'll talk to everyone later. Thanks for gaming with us, and thanks for watching in 2024.